I'm Rachel Horgan. Join me each episode as I sit down with a guest co-host covering the latest business stories in the Seattle area. We'll read the news so you don't have to. This is The Weekly. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I just want to do a quick note. I know my last episode was 37 minutes. I try to keep them around 30. I'm using behind the scenes, I'm using GarageBand, and it was recording in measures of 4 counts and beats per minute. So I was kind of just going off of vibes of how long I thought this was going to be. And then I just realized you can change the setting to time. So we'll see how it goes. I'm just going to jump right into it today. I've got an amazing guest. I have Ilona Lohrey, President and CEO of GSBA. Hi.
Hi, good to be here.
And if you've noticed a little bit of difference in sound, it's because I am on site at the GSBA office. So if you hear, I don't know how much we're going to be able to edit out, but if you hear some hustle and bustle, that's Capitol Hill. A little bit about our guest. We have GSBA is Washington State's LGBTQ plus Chamber of Commerce. For those that don't know, Chamber of Commerce is a group of businesses that supports the interests of its members. So you've got the Seattle Metro Chamber, the Kent Chamber. Typically, they are regional, like I just mentioned, but this one is a little bit different. It started in 1981 to support gay-owned businesses and has since evolved a ton and expanded into a lot of different things. And Ilona, you said you represent, 1,300 businesses?
Yeah, majority of them being small micro businesses and small businesses. I would say about 75%. And then the rest is nonprofit partners and sponsors are corporate members.
Amazing. And prior to this work at GSBA, you were the CEO of an industrial cleaning services company in Germany, sold it, and came to the U.S. And then again, prior to that, you worked in finance. Why the move back to the U.S.? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Germany, and it was a family business. My wife and I moved to Germany to take it over, but after 5 years and my parents passing away, we decided that we wanted to move back stateside to be with our network of friends and family that we had built here. And so I sold the company, came back, and then ended at GSBA.
And here you are. And one question before we get into the stories, why are you so passionate about working with this community and advancing diversity in general?
Yeah. So for one, at GSBA, I can really combine my passion of small business. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I come from an entire family of entrepreneurs. My entire life, I've worked from little, helping out, and I am from the community. I identify as a lesbian. So what better place to be than GSBA, where I can combine the two and work within my community supporting small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've worked with GSBA and with you in particular in the past few years. So you're doing some great work. Okay, we've got 5 stories for you. We have 1, Landmark Events is taking over the Columbia Winery tasting room. Next, we have Lululemon is leaving Pacific Place Mall. 3rd, local colleges and companies are partnering together with Japan to invest in AI education. 4th, Providence Swedish is buying the naming rights to the Sounders practice facility. And 5th, we have Google is pausing building their office space in Kirkland. So, Ilona, you ready to get into it?
You bet.
All right. So this first story, the headline, like I mentioned, is that Columbia Winery, that space has been empty for quite some time and a new company is coming in. So Columbia Winery is owned by E&J Gallo. They own Columbia Winery and also 130 other brands. So you're talking Black Box Wine, Amsterdam Vodka, High Noon. It ranges all over the place. And they left that tasting room in late of 2022. The space is owned by Dan Beatty, who is the co-founder of Precept Wines. They also own a handful of other labels like Brown Family and Waterbrook. So basically, Columbia leaves. It sits empty for about a year and a half, which to me is a little surprising. It's an incredible space in Woodinville, which is our wine tasting neighborhood. And it just was announced recently that Landmark Event Company is taking over the 6-acre site. So Landmark has a history of coming into very historic buildings and redeveloping them into an event space. Some examples of that is going to be the Fremont Foundry, the docked wooden ferry Scansonia. This will now bring them to 7 venues total. So they're coming in, they're doing a long-term lease. I couldn't find out exactly how long the lease is, but the goal is to acquire the property entirely. So what are your thoughts on this article? Were you surprised that it took so long, and were you surprised that it wasn't another winery coming in?
It wasn't surprising that it took so long. I mean, it's still coming out of the pandemic. What do you do with this type of property? I know they applied for some zoning, and I don't know if they were approved for that, to redevelop and do denser living spaces there as well. I know they eventually were taken over or bought by a private equity firm out of New York.
Oh, Chateau Saint Michel, which is across the street. Yes,
yes,
they were. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it wasn't surprising, and it also is not surprising that there's not another winery going in, and it's a beautiful property for Landmark to take over. I think it fits right into their portfolio of event spaces for weddings, galas, corporate events. So it doesn't surprise me. I think they have a great opportunity to connect with winemakers in the area to use their facility maybe as tasting room for those smaller
that's a good
winemakers.
idea. Yeah. Well, speaking of events, I know GSBA does quite a few. Maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of share a bit more about how many events you do and what your favorite one is, maybe.
Yeah. So we do quite a bit. We do about 50 events a year, and those range from smaller events like networking events all the way to our major galas, which are about 750 guests. I would say my two favorite events are Ecolux, which is in the late fall, which is our fundraising event for our scholarship program. It's a really fancy, creative event.
I've been a few times, yeah.
So that's exciting. And then, of course, our Scholar Celebration, which is actually coming up here at the end of the month, because all the money we raise in the fall, our donors and members can see that money put to work because we introduce our incoming cohort of scholars. And this year we set a new record with 71 scholars in the program, which is super exciting. Yes.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the agreement between companies and education and the effects that companies can have. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. My last thought on this is, I guess I was a little surprised it took so long, but I have a friend who told me that I don't know. I don't think it's on the record, but she thinks that the rent was quite high. So my guess is they just couldn't find a winery that was willing to pay that much. Yeah. And Landmark can have different revenue sources with all their events. So I'm a fan of the company Landmark, so I'm excited to see what they do. All right, moving on. Our next story. Lululemon leaves Pacific Place Mall, which is located in downtown Seattle. Their last day of sales is going to be April 21st, but don't worry, there's 9 other stores in Washington to get your leggings. In the article, Lululemon did not respond for the reason why they're leaving, but Ilona, I think you and I can kind of guess. Some of the stats they're saying for traffic downtown, according to the DSA, Downtown Seattle Association, total visitors is 87% to pre-pandemic levels, but foot traffic is only 57%. So I think this kind of brings up the discussion about brick and mortar versus online. And you, like you said, you have a lot of businesses as a member of GSBA. Are you seeing the brick and mortar members dealing with this issue of less foot traffic, and how are they combating that?
You know, we're located here in Capitol Hill, and we do see foot traffic coming back. People do want to shop local small businesses. Okay. I think we still have a ways to go to revitalize downtown. It doesn't surprise me that Lululemon left. They were not very visible at Pacific Place because they were inside. Which I also got trapped in Pacific Place one time. It's so confusing. It is. Yeah. I think, we need to make space more welcoming for folks to come in and bring cohesive stores together so, that people can have a full experience. Pacific Place is a great place, but it just doesn't have quite the right mix and not enough for people to really go out and shop there. Yeah. Being from Europe, I miss the experience of going to the smaller shops. So I love Capitol Hill for that. But downtown, it's not quite that same way. Yeah, especially after a lot of them closed from the pandemic. Right. You mentioned Capitol Hill. And so, as we said, Pacific Place is downtown. But for Capitol Hill, you're seeing foot traffic start to come back. What is the GSBA doing specifically to help Capitol Hill businesses? Don't you have an organization with them? Yeah, so we have the Capitol Hill Business Alliance, which is run by Laura on our team, and she used to be a business owner here on Capitol Hill for many years. She owned a yoga studio, I think 17 or 18 years, so she knows the area well, and she knows the businesses around here, and she knows how to connect with them. She understands what the pain points are for small business. So she does a really great job connecting businesses with each other through a program we call Know Your Neighbor. And it's just getting to know the neighbors that are next to you or across from you and showcasing what their businesses do. She's also organizing walking tours. So we have a walking tour coming up with Council Member Joy Hollingsworth and the Deputy Mayor Tim Burgess to visit some of those businesses here up on the Hill and to learn about, again, what are their pain points with the city of Seattle, what can be improved. I think just so important to engage with each other. Yeah. And so we love that life is coming back on Capitol Hill full force.
And understanding the impact like construction can have. Yes. I know I've talked to a few small business owners in different neighborhoods about how dramatic that can affect your
like
sales.
Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah, going down to Madison.
Yeah, Madison. Park. I was trying to go into Union and that whole street was blocked off. And so it was difficult to get into. But I think you're doing a lot of great work. This is, I've said this on another episode where I like working from home, but then when I hear these stories about this one and, Lululemon leaving and other businesses struggling, I'm like, we got to get back to work. So I don't really have a fix for that. But okay. Our third story, investment into AI with some colleges. So the headline here is that there's some U.S. universities and Japan universities that are partnering with $110 million from tech corporations to boost advancements in AI. So specifically, we're talking about UW, University of Washington here in Seattle, and the University of Tsukuba, I think I'm saying that right, in Japan. And they're partnering with NVIDIA, Amazon, Microsoft, and 9 Japan companies are backing this as well. So the other college partnership is Carnegie Mellon with Keio University, but we're going to focus more on the UW side of things. So this money is going to support things like research awards, postdoctoral and doctoral students, a summer research program, and an entrepreneurship boot camp program, along with, I'm sure, many other things. So separately from this, Microsoft and Amazon have also announced investing billions of dollars in AI in Japan. This partnership isn't new. In 2017, UW partnered with a university in Beijing alongside the support of Microsoft to create a graduate school GIX, Global Innovation Exchange in Bellevue, which was a U.S.-China graduate tech institute. So this kind of partnership isn't that new, but it is obviously AI is a very prevalent topic these days, and you were saying it's coming, so we got to just deal with it. What are your thoughts on AI in general, and then kind of talking a little bit about how we're handling it in Washington?
Yeah, I think AI is definitely a tool that is here to stay. It's not going to go away. So I think the sooner we all embrace it, the better. I think it's still a little bit fuzzy around what the definitions of intellectual property are that comes out of AI, especially in schools for students, and how to use it exactly. But on the flip side, it is an extreme opening for accessibility to students as well. Just recently, during legislative session, the governor incorporated funding for a AI task force here for Washington.
Oh, okay.
And to really, assess what are the parameters around AI? Because as much good as it can do, I'm sure there's also ways that it can be abused. Yeah. So just want to make sure that that is in line. And I'm really happy because we advocated for an LGBTQ plus person to be part of the task force because we bring a very different perspective to the discussion at the table. So super excited that that's happening.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't know that.
Can't wait for them to move forward with that. Yeah.
I love that. I think it's so important to have different voices on committees like that in particular. Yeah. I mentioned this before, but this conversation of Microsoft and Amazon spending all this money and impacting education in such a huge way. They're coming up with new programs. In this case, I think AI has to be studied and learned about, and we have to have these experts. But that also gives these corporations so much power in the education program. So I'm sure they're donating, but like you're not seeing Microsoft opening up like a brand new art history building and expanding on that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of like the impact that the business community has on education, and I guess maybe pros and cons, but.
Well, in our case, because we have a scholarship fund, the majority of our donors are business to the scholarship fund, especially since we opened up our process not just to go to a higher level degree, but also into the trade world. So that opens up so much opportunity, because now we can connect our scholars to construction industry, to the maritime industry, for internship opportunities, for apprenticeship opportunities, even just to go on a job shadow. We took several of our scholars to Fred Hutch to do a job shadow and work in their lab. And it's so hands-on that it gives our scholars a glimpse into what it's actually like to work in those fields that they study. And we couldn't do that without the support of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just such an important partnership between business and education. Yeah. Anything else you want to say on that?
Just, that hands-on experience cannot be replaced with the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, our fourth story is Providence Swedish is buying the naming rights for the Sounders practice facility. So Providence Swedish is a not-for-profit healthcare organization here, and they are going to be the naming rights sponsor for our men's soccer training facility located in Renton. So that just opened in February. The official title is Providence Swedish Performance Center and Clubhouse. Fun fact, they use the word clubhouse because that space used to be a racetrack. So they're trying to kind of reference that. After the racetrack, it was a headquarters for Boeing, and then Unico Properties came in and bought the land in 2021. And here we are with this facility. Some background is that Providence Swedish also has their logo on the jersey. And we were kind of talking about like, how much money are we talking about here for that? What did you pick up from the article?
So I have some mixed feelings on that. I saw that naming rights on the jersey is in the 7 digits. And by the end of this deal, it's going to move into the 8 digits. So
$10 million or more. Yeah.
Yes.
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions. So that made me think, well, how much did they pay to put their name on the training facility for the Sounders, right? Because that's a lot of money. And I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I applaud that Sounders has funding for their facility. It's important to support their work and the sport. On the other hand, a healthcare facility, especially in an environment where smaller, independent healthcare facilities go more insolvent or are being bought up by larger healthcare companies. And in a world where access to healthcare is not a given right for all people, it's extremely expensive. And sometimes people have to make decisions whether they're going to seek healthcare or if they're going to be able to feed their children. So, yeah.
No, it doesn't sit right with me, but I know that the healthcare industry spends billions of dollars on marketing and advertising.
Yes.
We know it. It's not just Providence Swedish. And part of that is because people have so much more choice here. There's so many more options. But, we were talking about like, this is a very American thing because in Germany, we're not seeing ads for ask your doctor about this drug or like come to this hospital. Is that right?
That's very much correct. Yeah. Healthcare is a right in Germany. Everybody has healthcare. And I think the pharma industry is just not as big in Germany as it is here in terms of revenue drivers. So yeah, advertising of specific medication is not a thing. Yeah. We're trying to avoid taking medicine. So
yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I think it's not unique to Providence Swedish. If I was to think of a counter argument, like you said, I think it's good that the Sounders are getting funding. I know that they're also doing a lot of giving back and they're partnering with the Renton School District. So there's some good stuff coming out of it. But I think as an everyday person, knowing how expensive my healthcare is and then seeing them spend tens of millions of dollars on a facility, I don't love it. But here we are. That's America, baby. All right. Our fifth story. Google is pausing Kirkland building. So they called it Kirkland Urban Project. So it was supposed to be 4 mixed-use buildings, eventually all to be open in 2025. One of the buildings had been leased by Tableau, which is owned by Salesforce. And then 2 of the buildings were complete, but not totally built out. And then their final building is what they stopped construction on, which is what this article is mostly about. I also was kind of digging in a little bit more into Google's recent decisions, and I guess they were going to build something else out, and they kind of backed out of a deal. There's a space in Fremont, which I walk by all the time. They've been there 7 years, and I just saw that they are not renewing that lease, which ends this summer. Mm-hmm. So they're making a lot of decisions to cut back on office space. They had 12,000 employees laid off last year, and the CEO says to expect more. I guess, what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm not that surprised by this. I think we're seeing Amazon and Microsoft and other companies, do these layoffs and kind of cut back on the office space. What are your thoughts?
Seattle and the East Side are expensive places to build, lease property. It doesn't surprise me. Also, I believe that most of the corporations in 2022, especially, were gearing up for a recession. So they were cutting back on a lot of investments, especially when it comes to property, because they didn't know what are the impacts going to be coming out of the pandemic. And then it was okay, you need to come back to work now, 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. And I believe Google has a 3-day mandate in office, which also is not the most attractive to tech workers, right? If they have other options to work somewhere where they don't have that mandate and they can really work from anywhere in the world. It's unfortunate that this project isn't going forward, because it doesn't just impact Google and their employees, but potentially also small businesses that are or were planning on moving into that mixed-use space in Kirkland.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully another company comes in and still uses that space. Any other thoughts on the articles?
No. Okay. Glad we're up to date again.
I know. We're in now. We're all in the know of what's going on in Seattle business news. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to share with the audience? Anything you want to plug and encourage people to check out?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we have our Scholar Celebration coming up. It's April 27. All the information is on our website, which is thegsba.org. It's a great celebration of our incoming scholars and existing scholars. And it'll be a fun brunch at Motif Hotel. So come check us out. Yeah, you should. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and hosting me in this office. And for those listening, make sure to check back every Sunday for a new episode. And this has been a fun time. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. This has been The Weekly. Make sure to check back next Sunday for the latest local business news. We love listener feedback. So if you have any story suggestions, comments, or complaints, email us at theweeklyseattle@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.